Hello everybody, how devil are you? This is Sirhc, and this is another Music Sirhc Suggests. Today's band is a group called Universe Effects. It's also shortened to UFX. They are, I believe, French-Canadian. They're not a super long-running band. They've been around since, I want to say 2012, or 2012 was when the vocalist joined. They started off as like an instrumental group, doing a lot of progressive rock and metal instrumentals and a lot of covers and stuff like that to really, work on their chops. But then they got the vocalist and they released. They've got 2 albums, I believe. They've got 2 albums now, and they are both progressive. Like, there's straddling lines of progressive rock and metal. Their influences are bands like Dream Theater, Liquid Tension Experiment, Planet X, Freak Kitchen, Symphony X, Steve Wilson, Transatlantic, Spock's Beard, Yes, Porcupine Tree, Andromeda, Arc. So, a lot of progressive rock groups. The sort of from the early days and then moving up into the more well-known ones. Other bands that I'd also put in there in that list of just not, I can't put things in their influences, but bands that sound similar. I'd put in Harken, Threshold, Thought Chamber, Enchant. So there's obviously there's a ton of bands that play in that style. It's a very popular style. Sort of leading from the early bands like Yes, Genesis, Rush, all the way up to Dream Theater, I guess, would be the next one that came along and sort of I guess not revolutionized the genre but popularized it again, because I mean, Yes and Genesis and stuff like that were hugely successful, and then the popularity of that style of music, progressive rock, sort of just, instead of it being something that was cool, it ended up becoming something that was pretentious, and people weren't impressed by 7-minute songs or 12-minute songs and virtuoso musicians and stuff like that. It just became a sort of oh, it's not cool to like that anymore. And then Dream Theater came along and sort of made it more mainstream again, and now there's tons of bands that embrace the title of progressive rock, and Universe Effects are one of those bands, and they're a relatively small one that I came across that I quite enjoyed. Their song Oblivious, there's a lyric video which I'll link at the end. I thought was quite a nice song. It's there's so many bands that play this style that a lot of them bleed into each other, and it's sort of I'll listen to it if it's on, but I'm not going to go out of my way to go to find out who it is, because they all sort of kind of sound the same. They all have the virtuoso musicianship. They got the guitars, they got the keyboards. They got the vocalist with the slightly higher voice. They all sort of bleed into each other. But I heard this track and it really stood out to me, and I thought this is an accomplished group. Obviously the musicians know what they're doing. They're all fantastic musicians, but I liked the composition of the track, the way that it went. It was nothing gimmicky or mind-blowing, whoa, I've never heard a sound like that before, but it's music that really just sort of went yes, I like this, and I will listen to this in the future. This is something that I enjoy. I actually found out about the band through YouTube. The guitarist Gabriel Cyr, I want to say. It's spelled Cyr, so I don't know how to actually pronounce that, but he has a channel on YouTube as well where he does like music related things, and he did a video or a couple of videos on like the most popular or the best riffs from various decades of music, or actually no, I think it was year by year. So there's a lot of like Van Halen and Black Sabbath and like just a lot of the really classic sort of riffs, and it stood out because he was a fantastic guitar player. He nails every one of them, but they also did keyboards and stuff like that in there. So I thought like he seemed super talented. And then I was talking to Aaron about it, and he was saying about like, oh, he should be in a band. Whoever sees this should definitely hire him into the band. And I said, he's probably in a band already. And then I looked at it and found that, yeah, he was in Universe Effects. So we went and checked that out. And we really, both of us really enjoyed it. Aaron actually said that he quite liked it as well. He's a big fan of Symphony X, probably more so Symphony X than any of those other bands. He will listen to other bands if I put them on, like some Steven Wilson or some Rush or some Dream Theater, but he's really a big fan of Symphony X. I got him into them, and he was all in for Symphony X. So Universe Effects are a different type of band in terms of like the vocals. The vocals are more like a Threshold or something like that than the Symphony X with Russell Allen's vocals. Overall, I just thought they were a really tight sounding band. A lot of like epicness to the band, a lot of like it's sort of like everything's building up, and it really sounds like a composed song, something that they've really struggled over and they put together, and they thought, this is it, this is the one, we've put it all together. So it's more than just a couple of guys playing virtuoso music and saying that like that's good enough, because it's a genre where a lot of that happens. They've actually really nailed it on the compositional side, which is something very important when you're in a genre with 15 million other bands that all know how to play like crazy, insane guitar solos and stuff like that. So, yeah, check them out. I'll put the link at the end, and as always, let me know what you think. Ciao for now.